Peninsula takes place 4 years after the zombie outbreak in Train to Busan. Korean Peninsula is devastated, and a former soldier who has managed to escape overseas is given a mission to go back and unexpectedly meet survivors. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here today to give you my thoughts, my review on Train to Busan Peninsula, one of my most anticipated films of 2020. Did it live up to the hype? Do I recommend you all check it out? Well, I'm gonna let you all know that in this non-spoiler review. Before we dive into it, as you can see on the screen now, make sure that you're following me on all my other social media accounts. That way you can stay up to date with what's going on here over at Movie Files. If you are new to this channel, welcome, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of that new content. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Helps out the channel tremendously, but I also really appreciate it. And last but not least, if you've seen this film, let me know your thoughts. Did you compare it a lot to the first one? What were some of your positives, your negatives? And do you want to see another film in this franchise? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's have some fun discussions in the comments below. So again, this was one of the few, this was like the last trailer reaction I did on my channel was for this film. I saw Train to Busan about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. It's one of those films that I heard so much about it. I was like, let's see what it's about, but it lived up to expectations. And as I've rewatched it about 4 or 5 times now, and every time I rewatch it, it gets higher and higher up my list as far as favorite horror films of all time, one of my favorite zombie films of all time. So to say I was excited for this film is definitely an understatement. So getting into this review, guys, so I think first and foremost, kind of just a disclaimer, I should say that to compare this to the first one would be a kind of not fair to this film as well as the original, because as I said up top, Train to Busan presents Peninsula. This is a standalone sequel. The way I looked at this film after watching now is very similar to 2008's Cloverfield. Now, we got Cloverfield 10 Cloverfield Lane, we got Paradox, kind of loosely spin-off sequels to those films, but the initial idea for Cloverfield's sequel was to be it was going to take place in the same universe in New York, but from a different perspective. So this film kind of has that to it where we know it's 4 years ago, it's in the same universe, but it's in a different perspective and it's a different movie. So with that being said, take that as you will. Let's get into the positives. So first and foremost, I'm going to try not to compare the two again, but there are some things that the film does try to kind of hand the audience and say, hey, remember that in the first one? We're going to try to recreate it to a certain extent. So there will be every now and then some overlap of me kind of comparing to the first. Starting off with this first positives. The first film, again, one of my favorite horror films, zombie films of all time. I looked at it more as a drama, suspense, zombie film in this contained area in the train, very unique kind of zombie film, where this film is more of an action drama. Now, speaking to the action was extremely ratchet up in this one. This film has more hand-to-hand combat with humans and zombies. We have more gunfights, and there are a lot of chase sequences in this film. They use cars like Transformers, it's Tokyo Drift, it's, Fast and Furious, it's Mad Max Fury Road. It has a lot of car action in this film. As the trailer kind of alludes to, Mad Max Fury Road definitely has that dystopia. The world's different. These survivors are different. How are they adapting to living with zombies? Definitely has that vibe. But I don't know if you guys remember this game on PlayStation called Twisted Metal, especially when it comes to those car sequences. It really reminded me a lot of that in a positive light, but also in a negative light, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But again, the thing that I really liked about this particular film was seeing this 4 years later and how the survivors are adapting to living with zombies, how the survivors are modifying their weapons, modifying their cars. All that kind of world building was very, very interesting to see nevertheless. But transitioning into what I thought made the first film so fantastic was its characters, right? We're rooting for these characters. We wanted them to get off of this train and survive and make it to a safe haven. So this film definitely had some characters that I really enjoyed. More importantly, our main cast, our character, forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Gang Jung-won as our main soldier of the film, who has an interesting past. 4 years ago, he's a soldier. He came across a family. He made a certain decision, and that decision haunted him. So he's trying to have a redemption story in this particular film as he comes across this other family that I really enjoyed. The dynamic between the mom, her 2 daughters, and the commander, their grandfather, I thought was really the emotional aspect of this film. The heart and soul comes from that particular family, and that's the crew that's the characters that you're rooting for in this film, and I found them to be very enjoyable, especially the two little daughters. Seeing them, how they adapted to the zombie apocalypse, how they are incredible car drivers, and the little gadgets and ways to distract the zombies. I found those characters to be very enjoyable. This film, like I had mentioned, definitely heightens and highlights the action, but also the scope and the scale of this film. You see the devastation across Peninsula. You see how it's not I love the confined space, but I also love seeing the world and seeing how different fractions and different people, Unit 631, how the soldiers that were supposed to save the survivors have now kind of switched the script. So I kind of like that element of the film. The soundtrack was pretty intense. Again, this film is an action heavy type of film, and I felt like the soundtrack really highlighted the action sequences and really made you kind of get on the edge of your seat. And I would definitely say, compared to the first act, the second and third act are definitely the more stronger, more developed aspect of the film compared to the setup wasn't all that strong, which kind of transitions into my criticisms. I felt this film, the zombies felt less threatening for me personally than it was in the first film, which again kind of makes sense because the humans have adapted to these zombies. They have their modified cars, they have their modified weapons, but the zombies were just kind of a background player and felt less threatening. They kind of felt like throwaway characters. The humans, and that's what you get with zombie films, as we saw in the first Train to Busan. It's the human mindset. It's how humans are greedy, how they're selfish, how they put their lives over others. So you expect that with this sequel, but the zombies, like I said, just didn't feel that threatening as they did in the first one. Besides our main group of family that we're following, the villains, the secondary characters kind of fell short for me on an emotional level as well as a character development level. They were just kind of overwhelming, very generic when it comes to the villains. Like they had, like I said, I think of the first one, the guy, that CEO guy who just put himself over everyone, kids, grandmothers, everyone. So you kind of got to know that character to a certain extent, and he was a terrible villain, but you also got a little bit of his character. This one, it was just like, they're greedy, they have these kind of dome fights, they're just kind of savages, so you don't really, again, very generic villains for me personally. The stakes at times felt less and didn't feel as heightened as I would have liked to have seen, especially compared to the first one. And also, again, like I said, this film tries to be its own standalone film, which is definitely different from the first one. But one of the things that this film tries to replicate is the emotional impact, which for some people really may resonate and really may get emotional connection to this particular film. But for me, a lot of the emotional aspects, minus the daughter and her two kids and the commander and the grandfather, everything else has kind of felt flat for me on an emotional level. This is a kind of a minor thing, but there was more American accents in this film. There was also more American actors, which I just felt like it's a Korean film. I love Korean horror. Nothing against America. I'm not anti-America, but I wish there wasn't as much American influences in this film, from the actors to just the spoken language of English being in this film. This was kind of jarring for me personally. And then I mentioned it briefly, what I said that this reminded me of Twisted Metal. The car sequences at first were really cool, especially when we meet the young girls making a certain rescue mission. But as the film goes on and on, it's like everyone's a pro street driver. Everyone knows how to fight the zombies with cars. It got a little bit kind of ridiculous, if I'm being honest with you. And the CGI with those cars, and especially the CGI with the zombies, wasn't as crisp and as authentic as the first one. So that kind of took me out of the film. But especially, like I said, everyone's just a car driver. They know how to beat the zombies with cars. It's like, where did you guys learn how to do that in the zombie apocalypse? It's just like, I don't know. That was just kind of unrealistic, to say the least. But wrapping this review up, overall thoughts: if you look at this as a standalone film, yes, it has the mantra Train to Busan presents Peninsula. If you look at it as its own film, Peninsula, it's fun, it's entertaining. It does have some very fun characters. Like I said, the daughter, the main family, our main soldier, you're rooting for them, but then everyone else, the CGI, the car chasing, the lack of emotional connection that I didn't have in the film like I did in the first, kind of drops it down for me. But overall, I'm going to give this a solid 3 out of 5. I'm going to revisit this film again just to kind of look at it, since I saw the film. Okay, once I saw that it's a new tone, new characters, all this stuff, you kind of get used to it, but it's still like, oh man, I wish they would have maybe implemented some things from the first one into this one. But I'm going to rewatch it again and see if the score stays the same, goes up, or maybe goes down. But for right now, I'm giving this a solid 3 out of 5. Again, I think it's important to note, no spoilers. leave expectations at the front door when you're watching this film. Again, it is the same universe. It's 4 years later. You get this montage. It's very, I would love to know in the comments, for those that haven't seen the first one, what you think about this film and how the film presents itself, as like at the beginning you get this montage. So if you've seen the film, it's kind of a refresher, like, hey, remember 4 years ago this would happen. But if you haven't seen the first one, they kind of give you like an understanding of what this world is like. So let me know in the comments if you've seen this film. A, if you enjoyed it. B, do you like the first one over the second one? You like the second one more than the first one? And C, do you want to see a third one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Me personally, this world's so big, I would like to see, if they were to make a third one, where they would go, what it would be about. But I don't think we need one, but I will be checking it out if they do make a third one. But again, let me know your thoughts, your pros, your cons in the comment section below. As always, guys, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up, comment below, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of that new content. I don't know if it'll be on this video, but there should be a feature that's on where you see the thumbs up and subscribe button. There's an applause little thing on my channel now. So it's a new thing that YouTube is trying out. If you want to support the channel, it's a way to support the channel. If you want to, all the proceeds that you guys give to the channel goes to this channel. So try it out if you want to do so, but it is something new that is on my channel and YouTube is launching out. So as always, guys, thanks for watching this review. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you in the next video.